Okay, so this one time I decided to take a creative writing course, and I thought it'd be fun, and so I decided to go for it. I ended up sitting next to two other kids most of the time there. There was this one guy who was kind of fat, and for some reason he liked, super liked music from the 60s, like the Beatles and Pink Floyd and anything, and whenever anyone for some reason even got a guitar into the room, he'd be playing it, and he'd be asking people, hey, do you like Pink Floyd? What do you think about the Beatles? And stuff like that. And there was this other girl who was pretty decent looking, but for some reason she seemed like she was tired all the time, and she had these huge bags under her eyes, and it seemed like she, I don't know, suffered from night paralysis, sleep paralysis, or whatever, or maybe she was just partying. I don't know. I didn't bother to ask. And so, since we were sitting next to each other most of the time, we would end up correcting each other's work. Now, I know I'm not the best speller, and since most of them were rough drafts, I didn't put a lot of detail into the spelling if it sounded right, and then afterwards I would end up correcting it. But this dude seriously was just anal about corrections. He would write up my entire paper with little things, even things that he didn't like contractions, for some reason, or he'd split up as he is, or other things, or stuff that sounded normal in dialogue. He'd correct it how he saw fit. He just basically wrote up the paper. But for the other girl, I'm not saying that she wasn't a good writer. A lot of the stories were pretty nice, but it wasn't like she was the next Shakespeare or anything like that. And you'd be like, oh my god, your stories are so good. It was could it be any more obvious that he was trying to get into her favor? But anyways, I didn't mind that. It was classwork, so I didn't really care. I ended up correcting it anyways. This one time we got up to the point where we were doing short stories, and so he made this one story about, I don't know, anthropomorphic germs inside the body, like Osmosis Jones, but he made them 50s gangsters or something like that. And one of his main characters was influenza, but he wrote him in a story as being bacterium. And after he was done, and he said, hey, any more questions? And yeah, isn't influenza caused by a virus and not by a bacterium? And then he got all defensive. He's like, no, what are you talking about? Of course it's a bacterium. And I'm like, okay, don't get all defensive. And the other girl was also like, yeah. And I thought a minute for a second. I'm not a chem major or anything, but I know that influenza is caused by a virus. But yeah, again, the fact that they didn't agree with me got me in doubt myself. But I let it go for the day. We're ending class, and so I wasn't really going to push it. And so eventually I ended up going home, and I had nothing better to do. So I ended up going on Wikipedia and checking it out. And I checked the definitions also for influenza, and who would have known it is a virus. I was happy that I actually had won the argument, but it soon hit me that I didn't really win anything, because I got shut up and told I was wrong, even though I was right. And I ended up having to second doubt myself to the point where I actually had to look it up to see that I was actually right. So either if I did technically win the argument, I didn't really win anything. I ended up losing twice. And then I really couldn't do anything, because what am I going to do? Next day I wasn't going to be all up in this fit and saying, hey, guess what, you're wrong, it's a virus, not a bacterium. And then what was I going to do afterwards? He'd be like, hey, I know you like Pink Floyd so much. You remember that one line from the Wall? It's like, if you don't finish your meat, you can't have any pudding. And then end up sucking him in the face. I wish I could have done that. It would have been a lot appealing. But, I don't really want to face jail time for having a disagreement over bacterium or virus. Even the other prisoners would end up looking down on me. And also the fact that I'm kind of saving my criminal record for something special. So I guess, like a good passive-aggressive fellow, I ended up saving that and ended up making a rant about it on the internet.